Today on Vintage HLC Show and Tell, we're going to look at pieces made by the Homer Laughlin China Company for the 1939 and 1940 New York World's Fair. We're going to start by looking at the Golden Gate International Exposition pieces. There were only two, the service plate and the ashtray. And I have a list here of all the pieces we're going to look at. And we see these were the first two that were modeled in 1938. The plate was modeled in October, the ashtray in November, and they were both released into production in November. And the plate was created by taking a Georgian ivory dinner plate and removing the embossing along the edge. You see the decal around the rim. This decal on the verge, I believe those are probably California wild poppies. Special mark on the back. Usually there's a Homer Laughlin underglaze mark as well. But this one says Golden Gate International Exposition, or really it says an official souvenir of the Golden Gate International Exposition under the glaze marking. And I wanted to show this plate in particular because it does tie in with the New York World's Fair service plates. These were made for both 1939 and 1940, as you see here. Very colorful decal on the rim. There's your Trilon and Perisphere. But you'll notice some of them will have this blotted out gold stamp. We see this is December 1938 marking. But what that is they've taken overstock or overrun of the Golden Gate Exposition plates and blotted them out for the New York World's Fair. So sometimes you will see this, sometimes you won't. And there's actually an inscription on it. I don't know if that's going to show up. But it says, let's see, decoration by Charles Murphy, 150th anniversary inauguration of George Washington as President of the United States. And that must have been a big theme of the fair, because in the center of all the pavilions and everything, there was a 64-foot statue of George Washington. And one last thing about these service plates, they must have made a lot of them, because they took even more. And in this case, they decorated with gold stamp and a decal. Here they got a little more creative and made a special overglazed gold stamp saying Gold Lace Service Plate. And you can see, I hope you can see, underneath is the Golden Gate Exposition mark. So it's just a way to use them up, whether it be for the World's Fair or these special service plates. There must have been an overrun on ashtrays too, because every once in a while we will see Golden Gate ashtrays with odd decorations like odd scrap prints, or in this case a pearlized glaze, gold trim. This one they didn't blot out the Golden Gate stamp though. Okay. As for the World's Fair pieces, there were two different batches made. The first comes from 1939. And the first piece made for the World's Fair was the George Washington mug. These are model numbers, by the way, which was modeled in April. It was released in production May of the same year in 39. Then we have two potter's plates, the thrower at the wheel and the artist at the wheel, and then finally the small George Washington mug. So the George Washington pieces, this is the regular mug, or Toby mug if you want to call it that. Generally they're found in vellum or old ivory. This one doesn't have a very good back stamp. And here's the miniature. This one comes from 1940. So these initial pieces were made for both years. This one's in bisque. Huxford show a set of George and Martha in Fiesta's dark blue glaze. This is a picture that was taken by Candy Fagerlin of her World's Fair collection, and there's one in yellow. But ivory is the standard glaze for these. The potter's plates. This one is the thrower at the wheel. Says on the back, joint exhibit of capital and labor. The American Potter, New York World's Fair in 1939. There's another one that has the Brotherhood of Operative Potters mark as well. And there's that second mark there. Then we have the artist at the wheel. This one comes from 1939. Turquoise and brown, or tan, as it's sometimes called, are the common colors for these. In fact, turquoise is very common. Then you get some non-standard colors. There's Old Ivory and Fiesta's Light Green. I'm filming this in the last week of November 2021, and 2 weeks ago, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, one of these in light green was on eBay and it sold for $500. These, however, are going to be very inexpensive. Turquoise ones you can get for $20 or even less. They've also been found in Fiesta Red and a couple other non-standard colors. Those usually go pretty high. So those are the 1939 pieces. Then in 1940, they added more pieces to the assortment. We have the Martha Washington mug. These are all from April of 1940. Again, those are model numbers. The Zodiac saucer, the Zodiac teacup, the 4 season ashtrays, spring, summer, autumn, and winter, and then finally, the small Martha Washington piece. Here's the regular Martha Washington jug or mug or Toby. This has a nice embossed logo with a marking of 1940. And here's the miniature. Zodiac Cup and Saucer in turquoise. Turquoise is the standard glaze for this, though I've seen them in ivory and light green as well. Standard marking from 1940. And it has various signs of the zodiac. There's Cancer, and Sagittarius, Scorpio, Libra, Leo. The cup has the remainder, Pisces and Aquarius, Capricorn, Gemini, Taurus, Aries. And I didn't know this till recently because I never really paid attention. Someone pointed out that the embossing on that handle is actually a curled snake, which I thought was interesting. And then the 4 season ashtrays. And this is the standard color assortment. So spring is in light green. Summer, it's in turquoise. And each one has a different scene. There's the fisherman for spring, a picnic for summer, a hunt scene for autumn, Fiesta Red, and finally the skaters for winter on Old Ivory. These are the standard colors, as I said, though you will find some odd ones. Like I think there's a person who has like all green ones or all turquoise ones. We look at Candy Fagerlin's photo again, and there's a yellow one sitting there. This I wanted to look at, came from the factory, and this is a sales report. This was in Joe Cunningham's research files. And it's talking about the quantities that were sold. And I'm not exactly sure if this is 1939 or 1940. It's possible it could come from 1940 because the other pieces weren't released in production yet. The Martha Washington pieces, the ashtrays, and the Zodiac pieces. But regardless, I think it's interesting. It gives us a look into what was sold more than the other pieces, and it's not that surprising, because if you collect this, you kind of know what's easy to find and what's difficult. The first piece, it says George Washington, which would be the regular size George Washington mugs. And we go from April 30th to the end of May. And there's 1,031 of them. Then it says Homer Laughlin, and I would assume that's the service plate. And there were 764. Jiggered plates, these are the potters at the wheel. And I've never been able to figure this one out, this third one, but we see turquoise and brown. But the important thing here is this turquoise one, 1,238, as opposed to the other two colors, 234, 129. Then we see a couple of the other potteries listed. There's Cronin. Cronin made a couple pieces. They made a cake set with a cake plate and a little cake lifter. Payton City, I believe, made a plate and a salad bowl. We look at their figures, and it says, let's see, 747 for Cronin, 314 for Payton City. Then it says Washington Small, so that's your little miniature George Washington Toby, and it says 365. Marmalade, that would be by the Edwin M. Knowles China Company. It's a little yellow marmalade with a red finial. There's only 17 of those. Correction, 30. And then there's a list of the vases. The vases were hand thrown. So that was the idea of this exhibit, was you could see the different methods of production. You could see the plates that were jiggered on a machine, or you could see the Tobies, which were done by casting, or you could see pieces that were hand thrown, like the vases. This one is roughly 7 3/4 inches tall in Fiesta turquoise. Comes from 1939. You can look at the lines inside. You can tell that was hand thrown by the rings inside. Someone had their hand and they were forming it up as it was turning on its wheel. But there seemed to be some specific forms they were using, because they have a number 1 low, a number 1 bulb, a number 1 tall, a number 4 extra tall. Couple of things here, a snack plate. Not exactly sure what that is. Then we see Flora turquoise, tall yellow, number 2 large, number 2 bulb, and number 4 tall. So if we look at the quantities for all of these, they're pretty low. They're all less than 20. 17, 19, 4, 7, 7, 13, 1, 1, 2, 3, and 2. So within this month span, we get an idea of what were the best sellers. In this case, it's the George Washington Tobies and the turquoise jiggered plates. This is a memo to the 5 potteries that were involved in this exhibit. And we can see them at the bottom. Homer Laughlin, Edwin M. Knowles, Hall China, Cronin China, and Payton City. Dated August 3rd, 1939. So it says our cash sales for July total 7,000, and this is some of these numbers are going to be hard to see because this is a photocopy of a photocopy probably. $7,003.08, making a total of $16,199.61 for the 3 months. Quantity sales as follows. George Washington, 2,007 pieces. The George Washington miniatures, 2,593 pieces. The Potter's plates, that's these guys here, 5,400. Cronin cake plate and server, 1,025. Homer Laughlin souvenir plate, that's this piece, 1,217. Knowles snack plate, I think that's a 346. Knowles marmalade jar, 70. Payton City salad bowl, 532. Hall teapot, 211. Vases, various sizes and glazes, 511. So again, we get to see a breakdown of what was selling. The Hall teapot. I snatched a picture off the internet just to show the Hall teapot. Very similar to the Star teapot, but it has the Trilon and Perisphere embossing. Nice gold decoration. To my knowledge, this is the only piece that Hall made for the fair. I thought this was interesting. It says, as you will note, our July sales were $1,004 over the June sales. July has proved to be a disappointing month, as I confidently expected to sell not less than $8,000 or $9,000. However, the weather has been atrocious. That plus the penning of the fair management is deservedly receiving has caused a tremendous drop in attendance. So if I'm reading that right, the fair management got some bad reviews. Last Saturday and Sunday were two of our poorest days of the poor days. Deducting the employees and the holding passes, the paid attendance would not exceed 100,000. There is a probability that the management will cut the admission to a flat 50 cents. This undoubtedly will bring out a great many more people, it is thought. So just a little sidebar there on the weather that wasn't cooperating, and an implication here that the fair management wasn't doing what they should have. And it's assigned John Dowsing, the manager. He was the manager of the pottery committee for the World's Fair. And this I printed out. I didn't print this out. These are actually copies. Joe Cunningham had these copies, and I just thought it was interesting. As they were planning the World's Fair, they were also planning a special exhibit in Washington, D.C., and this is dated April 22nd, 1939, again from John Dowsing. And it says, I have arranged for a press preview of our exhibit in the main foyer of the Department of Commerce building, Washington, D.C. at 11 a.m. Wednesday, April 26th. And it's talking about getting samples from various potteries to put on display, which was pretty short notice. And the potteries asked to participate include Harker, French Saxon, Salem, Lenox, W.S. George, Payton City, Homer Laughlin, Royal China, Cronin China, Steubenville, Bailey Walker, and so on. We see Hall China and Edwin Knowles at the bottom. So there must have been a special exhibit in Washington, D.C. of these different potteries and their wares to coincide and help publicize the New York World's Fair. I'll put this aside. The next thing I want to talk about is the special mural that was on display. Well, before we do that, let's look at this. This comes from the Ceramic Industry Trade magazine from August 1939. It has a couple pictures I want to focus on. American pottery for the service of the world of tomorrow. And this is the actual setup that they had. We can look at the mock-up of the circular kiln and the working stations, and we see the mural in the background here from the special World's Fair flyer. There's some markings from the potteries involved. Edwin M. Knowles, Cronin, Homer, Hall, and Payton City. But that's the mock-up. And this is a picture of the actual setup. So you see the circular kiln in the background. There's the mural. And I have another printout where I tried to enlarge it the best I could. And you can see some potter's plates and some Washington mugs. This man is turning a vase by hand. There's also a jigger assembly. This man looks like he's dressing where he's like probably getting mold seams out. Some sales girls over on this section. There's the cash register. It looks like a cash register. But this is the setup they had. Now, if you were standing in this setup and looking outward, you would see the exhibits. And I tried to blow this one up as well. So there's the hand-turned vase inside the pottery workstation. And on the floor, we see the Cronin China Company's exhibit back here, unfortunately it's in the back, Homer Laughlin's. Some sales girls standing in front of Paden Cities. There's Hall China's, a bunch of teapots on display. And Edwin M. Knowles is off to the side. So I thought those were interesting to look at. It's just a little article that talks about the little pottery that's going on and the glazing that's going on. There's some more of those jiggered plates, the potter's plates. There's some more Washington pieces. But what I want to talk about is a mural. This 41 foot by 14 foot mural, which was painted in Knoll. Here's a color version. This is a blow up from that special promotional piece on the World's Fair. But it's called 40 Years of Collective Bargaining. We see allegorical figures representing capital and labor. Over here we see the businessman. This is supposed to be W.E. Wells, very important man in the pottery industry. I've spoken about him several times. We see the bank, we see the retailers, we see the factories. There's some bottle kilns. So there's all your capital. On this side's labor. This is Dr. Albert Bellinger, chemist at Homer Laughlin, responsible for a lot of the glazes like vellum and the Fiesta glazes and so on. Kiln placers, putting pieces in the bottle kilns. That looks like a jiggerman. There's a slip caster, a glaze dipper, ware dresser, and this man up top is Frederick Reed. And it says it's painted by Charles Murphy and William Blair. And we have a picture of them working on this mural. And you can see this is the edge of the mural. It's tied down to this wire frame. So there's Charles Murphy, and this is William H. Blair. And this gentleman down here, he's seated, and he's probably got some concept art or some notes on what needs to be done with colors. His name was William Gill. And there's some articles about the mural. I wanted to look at this one real quick. This is from Tuesday, April 4th, 1939. Pottery mural on display tonight. Final opportunity to view locally the pottery mural, which will be displayed at the New York World's Fair this summer, will be given to East Liverpool District residents at the Homer Laughlin China Company No. 6 plant in Knoll tonight from 7 to 10 p.m. Tomorrow, the canvas, 41 feet long, will be rolled and made ready for shipment to New York, where it will form the background for the pottery displays at the Home Furnishings Department at the fair. Again, that was April 4th, 1939, so it would have been shipped out the next day. Now, what's happened to the actual mural, I don't know, but it would be impressive to see it if it could ever be recovered or found. I don't know if it made it back to the factory. I don't know if it stayed in New York. The concept art is still at the factory in the main offices, however. So I think that's going to be it for the World's Fair. I do want to mention one last thing. You will find other pieces made by potteries not mentioned. The 5 potteries, Cronin, Knowles, Homer, Hall, and Paden City, like this little piece, which says World's Fair 1940, HR in the back. This is etched into a piece of Cameron Clay Products. Lennox also made pieces, souvenir pieces. I'm sure several other potteries did as well. So that's going to be it. New York World's Fair, 1939, 1940.